The radical power of softness. Why vulnerability will change the world. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I want to begin by acknowledging someone whose insights have profoundly shaped not just the conversation we're about to have, but an entire movement redefining power in our modern world. Recently, I had the privilege of interviewing Leafeaster Chisholm, a revolutionary thinker and activist whose work has fundamentally transformed how we understand the intersection of ambition, authenticity, and achievement, especially for Black women navigating professional spaces that weren't designed for them. Lee Feaster isn't just changing conversations, she's changing lives. Her philosophy has catalyzed healing for thousands of women on the brink of burnout. Her framework for sustainable success has been implemented in Fortune 500 companies, reducing turnover by 37% while increasing productivity. But perhaps most powerfully, she's creating permission for an entire generation to reimagine what strength looks like, to challenge systems that profit from human depletion, and to pioneer a new paradigm where softness isn't weakness, it's revolutionary power. Today, I want to share with you the transformative insights from my conversation with Lee Feaster because they challenge one of our most fundamental cultural assumptions that power and vulnerability are opposing forces. Okay? We live in a world that worships at the altar of hustle culture. We celebrate the grind, the push, the relentless drive. We've been conditioned to believe that success requires sacrifice of our time, our health, our relationships, our joy, that to climb the ladder, we must armor ourselves, harden our edges, and push through pain. This narrative is particularly intense for Black women who often face the double burden of racism and sexism in professional spaces. But what if this entire framework is fundamentally flawed? What if the most revolutionary act isn't pushing harder, but allowing ourselves to be soft? What if true power comes not from force, but from flow? This is the counterintuitive idea at the heart of what Lee Feaster calls the soft girl era, a philosophy that suggests our greatest strength may come from embracing rather than rejecting our need for rest, joy, and authentic self expression. Now, when I say soft, I'm not talking about being passive or weak. I'm talking about a radical reimagining of strength itself, the courage to prioritize well being over workaholism, the wisdom to understand that sustainability trumps burnout, the revolutionary act of saying, my humanity is not negotiable, even in pursuit of my goals. During our conversation, Lee Feaster shared something that stopped me in my tracks. She said, the world teaches Black women that we must be twice as good to get half as far. But what if the real power move is being fully ourselves, unapologetically human, brilliantly imperfect? What if our softness, our ability to feel deeply, connect authentically, and honor our needs is actually our superpower? This perspective doesn't just challenge our notions of success, it shatters them. It suggests that the traditional metrics, the corner office, the impressive title, the six-figure salary, mean little if they come at the cost of our joy, our health, and our sense of self. Consider the sobering reality. Studies show that burnout is reaching epidemic proportions, particularly among high achieving women. A McKinsey report revealed that 42% of women report being burned out, with the number significantly higher for women of color. We're seeing record levels of anxiety, depression, and stress related illness among professionals. The hustle harder approach isn't just failing us, it's killing us. Slowly, systematically, and with our full participation, Leafeaster's work points to an alternative path, one that honors ambition while refusing to sacrifice well being, one that recognizes that true power isn't about domination, but about integration of our professional goals with our personal values, integration of our drive with our need for rest, integration of our strength with our softness. She shared a powerful metaphor that has stayed with me. Think of water, she said. Water is soft, yielding, flexible, yet over time, water carves canyons through solid rock. Water nourishes everything it touches. Water, in its softness, is one of the most powerful forces on earth. This is the essence of the soft power revolution. Understanding that flexibility can be stronger than rigidity, that flow can be more powerful than force, that sustainability ultimately trumps intensity. But embracing this paradigm shift isn't easy, especially for those who've been conditioned to equate worth with productivity. It requires unlearning toxic beliefs about success. It demands courage to challenge systems that profit from our exhaustion. It calls for community to sustain us when we dare to prioritize ourselves in a world that often punishes such choices. Lee Feaster shared with me three core principles that guide this revolution of softness. First, boundaries are sacred. No is a complete sentence. Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's necessary. As Audre Lorde famously said, caring for myself is not self indulgence, it is self preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. This is particularly resonant for Black women who have historically been expected to care for everyone but themselves. Second, rest is productive. Our culture has pathologized rest, treating it as laziness or indulgence. But rest is where we integrate learning. Rest is where we heal. Rest is where creativity flourishes. Rest isn't the absence of productivity, it's a different, equally valuable form of it. Third, joy is non negotiable, not as a reward for achievement, but as an essential nutrient for a life well lived. Joy isn't frivolous, it's fuel. It sustains us through challenges. It connects us to our purpose. It reminds us why we're doing the work in the first place. These principles sound simple, but implementing them in a world that constantly pushes us toward burnout requires intention, practice, and often community support. Lee Feaster emphasized that this shift isn't just personal, it's political. When Black women in particular claim their right to softness, to rest, to joy, they're challenging centuries of exploitation. They're disrupting narratives that have valued Black women primarily for their labor and sacrifice. They're modeling new possibilities, not just for themselves, but for everyone trapped in systems that profit from human depletion. During our conversation, Leaf Easter shared a powerful affirmation that encapsulates this philosophy. I am not just what I produce. My worth is inherent. My joy matters. My rest is sacred. My softness is my strength. Imagine a world where this wasn't radical. Imagine workplaces that valued sustainability over burnout. Imagine communities that celebrated rest as much as hustle. Imagine what might be possible if we all had permission to be ambitious and human driven and soft. This isn't just idealism. There's growing evidence that this integrated approach leads to better outcomes, not just for individual well being, but for creativity, innovation, and even bottom line results. Companies with wellness centered cultures report higher productivity, lower turnover, and greater innovation. Leaders who practice sustainable success inspire more loyalty and better performance from their teams. And individuals who honor their need for rest and joy report greater satisfaction, better health outcomes, and often, paradoxically, greater achievement over the long term. Leafeaster shared the story of Maya, a brilliant executive who embodied the strong Black woman archetype to perfection. Maya prided herself on being the first in the office and the last to leave. She answered emails at 2 a.m. She hadn't taken a real vacation in 5 years. Her colleagues marveled at her stamina, her drive, her seemingly limitless capacity to take on more. But behind closed doors, Maya was crumbling. Her blood pressure was dangerously high. She couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed, really laughed. Her relationships were suffering, and despite working harder than ever, her creativity and strategic thinking, the very qualities that had made her successful, were diminishing. It was only when a health crisis forced her to stop that Maya began questioning everything. With Lee Feaster's guidance, she embarked on what felt like a radical experiment, prioritizing rest, setting boundaries, making space for joy, treating her well being not as an indulgence, but as a non negotiable foundation for her work. The results transformed not just her health, but her leadership. Team morale improved, innovation increased, and counterintuitively, her department's productivity rose, not despite her new boundaries, but because of them. By modeling sustainable success, she created permission for her entire team to work in more human and ultimately more effective ways. This transformation isn't easy. It requires confronting deeply ingrained beliefs about worth and productivity. It demands courage to challenge systems designed to extract maximum output with minimum regard for human flourishing. It calls for community to sustain us when we dare to prioritize ourselves in a world that often punishes such choices. But the alternative, continuing on the path of burnout and depletion, is increasingly untenable, not just for individuals, but for our organizations, our communities, our world. The revolution of softness that Leafeaster champions isn't about abandoning ambition, it's about humanizing it. It's not about lowering our standards, it's about expanding them to include well being alongside achievement. It's not about doing less. It's about being more intentional about what we do and why. As we conclude, I want to share one final insight from my conversation with Lee Feaster. She said, the most revolutionary act is to show up as your full, authentic self in spaces that weren't designed for you, to bring your softness into hard places, to prioritize joy in a culture obsessed with struggle, to rest in a world that glorifies exhaustion. This isn't weakness, it's the ultimate form of courage. So I challenge you today. What would change if you embraced your softness as strength? How would your leadership transform if you valued sustainability over sacrifice? What systems in your life need reimagining to support human flourishing alongside achievement? This isn't just about personal well being, though that alone would be reason enough. This is about creating a more humane, sustainable, and ultimately more effective way of working, leading, and living. This is about challenging the false dichotomy between power and vulnerability, between ambition and authenticity, between success and wholeness. The world doesn't need more burned out achievers sacrificing their humanity on the altar of productivity. The world needs leaders who model a different way, who prove that we can be both powerful and soft, both ambitious and human, both successful and whole. The revolution begins with permission, permission to rest without guilt, permission to set boundaries without apology, permission to prioritize joy as a non negotiable, permission to be gloriously and perfectly human in all your complexity. Your softness is not your weakness, it is your revolution. And that revolution begins today. Thank you.